Hello. Thank you for joining us. This is Charlotte Mecklenburg Library's Real World Crash Course presented by the library's nonprofit services team. My name is Janet DeSantis. I am the Adult Services Librarian at the Mountain Island Library location. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, who is Kim Roseboro. Kim has a passion for public service, and she has the ability to motivate and mobilize individuals into action. Kim is recognized as an emerging leader in the Charlotte community with over 25 years of experience in the nonprofit industry. Currently, Kim serves as the founder and executive director of Firm Foundation's Youth and Family Outreach Incorporated. That's a nonprofit organization that places a strong focus on teens and their families. Also, Kim is the founder and senior consultant of Visions at Work Consulting, which is a full-service consulting firm that specializes in working with individuals and nonprofit organizations for everyone to reach their nonprofit potential. So both Kim and I will be moderating the comments that you're putting into chat. I'll introduce Kim, and she can take it over, and we can probably, if Kim will address them at the end. But at this point, let me bring Kim Roseboro on. Thank you, and thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you so much, Janet. It's definitely an honor and privilege to be a part of this series and to be the first one of the series. I look forward to sharing my story, sharing some insight in regards to starting a nonprofit organization here. And like the title says, giving the real deal in regards to starting a nonprofit. So thank you for that opportunity. All right, so we can jump right in with the presentation. I encourage you all to, as Janet said, to drop comments in the comment box. I will try to save those toward the end in hopes that throughout the process that I have addressed some of your questions or concerns. But I will keep an eye on it. So if I do see like a burning question or comment that fits right then, I will try to stop at that point. But I will try to really focus on answering the questions at the end. So as the title is, putting your passion into action. To me, that's what nonprofit work is all about. We all are passionate about certain things, whether it's children, the elderly, animals. And so what are we doing with that passion? And so I'm all about putting that into action. And so the 5 real deal steps to start your nonprofit, I'll walk you through some of the steps that I went through. I'll share some of my stories. One thing that I know as I was starting my nonprofit, which is Firm Foundation's Youth and Family Outreach, as Janet shared, there weren't a lot of workshops out there. And the workshops that were out there were very technical as far as focusing on the steps and the filling out the forms, the reporting, and so forth, which is very important. But it's also important to know the real deal, what it really takes, what you're going to go through, what you're going to experience, and the characteristics that you need to have as you're developing this nonprofit. And so this workshop is really going to focus on the real deal piece. This is not going to be a lot of technical pieces that you will see. So I'm not going to show you how to fill out specific forms, but I'll give you more focus on what it takes in those other steps. And I will point you in the direction and share a resource at the end that will go more into the technical side. I also encourage you, the library has some upcoming workshops that probably will focus more on some technical pieces in regards to nonprofit organizations. All right, so Jeremy, let's jump into the next slide. You'll learn that I am a woman that believes in words. And so this quote, the 2 most important days of your life are the day that you were born and the day that you find out why. Again, the world of nonprofit, This work is service oriented. And so really understanding your purpose and your why, it's a true awakening. And so it really, I encourage you all, as you're really focusing on your passion and starting a nonprofit, it really is tied into your why. And that's a favorite quote of mine from Mark Twain. Next slide, Jeremy. And I also want to thank you all for joining, but I also want to say congratulations, because this is another step towards you all fulfilling that passion. This is another step of you fulfilling your why. This is an opportunity where you're saying, hey, I have this passion, I have this itch, I have this urge to do something, and I don't know what, but you are here today because you are taking a big step. So unless we take the first step into the unknown, we'll never know our own potential. So I just want to say congratulations for you being here and making that step versus just sitting on your skills, sitting on your passion, sitting on your whys. And so I always want to start off with just congratulating you all for being here, and thank you for investing the time and energy in being a part of this presentation. And so again, this is going to be conversational. So do not fear from putting any comments in that box, okay? Next slide, Jeremy. All right, so Janet gave me a nice introduction, but I just want to, give you a casual introduction of who I am. So you'll feel more comfortable even in asking questions, because I don't want this to be and feel like a stuffy workshop. And so who is Kim Roseboro? I'm a very relational person. I am one that likes to share my experience, share what knowledge I do have, so that you can go forth in your passion and really initiate your desires. And so one thing that I remember years ago, when I was working at a program with youth, and there was a situation where there was a young person that I was working with, and I found out that he had got into some trouble, and it really bothered me. And I kind of took that personal, because you're out there in the community trying to make an impact, and you just think you're going to just save the world, right? So as we're creating these nonprofits, we think we're superheroes, and we want to have that mindset that we are going to change the world. And I remember one of the other youth in the room must have seen my disappointment, and she said, Miss Kim, she was like, you can't save us all. And I will never forget that. And that was probably like 20 years ago. And she said, Miss Kim, you can't save us all. And I hung on to that. And even as I'm growing and developing into this world of nonprofit, I take that and say, I may not save them all myself through my organization, through my efforts, but if I'm educating others, like all of you who are on this call, if I'm teaching you and sharing my experiences, that's empowering you. And initially, really, my reach is expanding. And so that's one reason that I'm really passionate about sharing and giving information, because I'm helping you help our community. That's going to be a better world for all of us. And so just wanted to share my heart as far as who I am and how I relate to workshops and opportunities such as this. What is Firm Foundations? Janet mentioned it. It's my heart and baby. It's my nonprofit. I started from the ground up. I'm very passionate about the work. It was something that was created out of gaps of services. And so, as mentioned before, I have over 24 or 5 years in the world of nonprofit. So that's my background. I've always been involved in nonprofit organizations, from working from program assistant to lead programmer to program directors, all the way up to regional director of youth services. And so I really made sure that in my career, I really soaked up all the knowledge that I had working in these nationally recognized nonprofits, because I had a desire to do more. And so Firm Foundations really was created out of where I saw a gap in services were. So I was working in an organization, and we served children from the age of 5 to grades kindergarten through 5th grade. And then I saw that, okay, well, we invest all this time into them when they're in their elementary years. And then once they hit middle school, we kind of disappear. And so after years of seeing that, my heart just felt for that group of youth that we're just throwing out there. And so that's where I saw that gap, that opportunity to create and be a solution. And so that's what you really have to think of when you're looking and thinking about your organization. Like, what gap, what service am I providing or wanting to provide that is not out there or is not as prevalent as and relevant as some of the other organizations? So find your, in the for-profit world, we're here niche, but in the nonprofit world, I challenge you to find those gaps in services and to fill that. And that's really how Firm Foundations was created and the why for that. What is Visions at Work Consulting? Like I mentioned, as I have learned, as I've experienced, and people ask me questions. And so that's where the consultant piece comes into play. And so what we do is something that we call, vision coach. We help you walk out your vision and implement it. And so there's a team that I have that works, specializes in certain areas to help with that piece. So I want to do something real quick as I'm sharing. I want to know who's in the room. And I know there's quite a bit of you all, but if you will do something for me in the comment box, so I can tailor my conversation a little bit more specific. If you are at the very beginning stage, so you are at the thought stage, you have not initiated any paperwork, you just have this thought of creating an organization. You have this passion burning in you in regards to creating an organization. I want you'll drop a 1, but don't drop the 1 yet because you want to hear what the 2 option is. If you have started, so you have started doing some programs, you have started, paperwork, you may have even applied, processed your paperwork, you'll be a 2. So I'm gonna kind of keep it basic with the 1s and the 2s. So you're a 1 if it's just a thought and you're wondering, what do I do with this thought? And a 2 is I've started, but I need to kind of amp it up. And so if you'll just drop that in the comments so I can kind of see where the majority of you lie. Again, that's a 1 in the comment if it's a thought, and a 2 in the comment if you've started something. So if you'll do that for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. All right. Okay. All right. And Jeremy, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Awesome. We have a lot of thought leaders on here. That's awesome. Well, yes, a big congratulations to you all. And so today's objectives, again, I said I'm going to start and give you the ins and out of the backstory of what it takes. And I really want you to learn to tap into finding your why, because you're going to need that why, because there's going to be some restless nights. There's going to be some no's that you're going to hear. And so it's important to really anchor down into your why. And then I will share those essential steps that I empower you to start now. And so you all have just did a physical demonstration that you've been thinking about it. So now with that thought, what are we going to do now? And so I want you to feel a little bit more confident in starting now at the end of this presentation. Jeremy, you can go on to the next. All right. So in knowing that, I want you to know that what you have is needed. That desire, that passion, that gap, you've already had the thoughts in mind. So what you have is needed. So let's jump on it and get it done now. Because at the intersection of where your gifts and talents and abilities meet a human need, there you will discover your purpose. And again, that why, you will know that why. Even now after, so Firm Foundations began in my mind 10 years ago. All right. And so 10 years later, I've heard a lot of no's. I've had a lot of struggles. I will not lie to you. There's been times where I'm like, God, take this out of my heart. I don't want this passion anymore. I will go back and work for another nonprofit and just be fine. But I realize what I have is needed. My why is needed. And my why can make an impact in the community that may be needed. It may change the life of a teen that was ready to give up. So it's important to always go back to your why when you hear those no's. When you look at the bank account and you realize you can't do everything that you want to do, you have to go back to your why. And so that's I would say that's the most important thing of this whole presentation. But I don't want y'all to leave yet, okay? Even though I gave you the secret sauce. But that is that important in knowing your why. All right, Jeremy, we can go on. All right, you and your vision are solutions. And like I just said, it is necessary. You have to be bold in your why. You have to believe that it's necessary. Because number one, if you are sitting across the table from a funder or you're sharing, trying to build a partnership with someone, and they can tell that you aren't strong in your vision and solution and that you don't believe that what you feel is necessary, then it won't happen. So you have to have that mindset. This is necessary. I know what I want to do. And I know that this is going to change lives in the community that I'm going to serve. And so once you are able to articulate that, once you're able to really embed that in your mindset, that's going to be the biggest step into moving forward, because relationship building and building up your brand is key, right? We are all, everybody on here, to be honest with you, is a one. So we are all, you're all in the thought process piece, right? I'm still, even though it's been 10 years since I've had this thought, I am still in the startup phase. Being 5 years and under is when we really, really initially started. And so comparing who I am to a YMCA, a Boys and Girls Club, I'm still a startup. And that's another reality why it's so important for you to understand your why and to be bold and to be passionate about that. And so I encourage you that you need to write that down. You need to specifically put on the details. My why is X, Y, and Z. I am going to impact this field by doing what? And so, I'm big on vision boards and things of that nature. If you don't have a vision for your thought, so it's one thing to have a thought, but you need to have a vision behind that. And I encourage you to post that, to have that visually, put it on your phone so that you're seeing it, because you have to be strong into what your why is and what your vision is. Go ahead, Jeremy. So knowing your why, what is the need that you were addressing? And so I'm going to, of course, use my self as an example, but the need I was addressing was providing opportunities for middle school and high school youth. And so that was a gap where I saw that either there were no services, or the services were just, let's put them in an open gym and let them hang out, versus really providing foundational programs. And so I was able to kind of narrow down the need. Yes, it's not just about liking kids and loving youth, but it's really about addressing the need and being that specific. And the why now. And so not knowing what everybody's vision and passion is, but there's a lot of why nows. We are in a crisis, and I can't remember who says it, but looking at crisis, it opens up opportunities. And so this is a great time. We want to say now, this is a great time to be a solution to a lot of the issues and challenges that this pandemic has caused us. And so I really encourage you to capitalize on this. We look at a lot of the negativity and we say that, this pandemic is negative, but look at this as an opportunity for you to be a solution during this time. So really look at what your passion is, what your vision is, and being able to articulate why now. So again, I hope you're taking notes. I want you to jot down these things, because these are homework assignments, basically. You need to be able to know what your need is and why now. And what are you committed to doing? And this is another thing that in creating a nonprofit, where I see a lot of nonprofit leaders get worn down. And I'll admit, I have stumbled into this trap and trying to commit myself to too many things, right? And so really commit to one thing. And I'll be very transparent. That's one thing about me too. So with this pandemic, in serving youth, one of the things in the area that youth needed was the remote learning sites, right? And so before then, Firm Foundations, we did our mentoring programs, we did after school programs, we did summer camps. And so now, here comes this remote learning piece. And so we jumped on that, right? And what we've learned is it wore us down. It really stretched us to the point where it pulled us from the other things that we excelled in. It pulled us from the things that we knew how to do excellent in. And so what we had to realize is, this may not be our area. So let's look to the community and see who can we partner with in order to provide this solution. And so I encourage you to not overextend yourself, but to commit to two or three things, but really commit to something. And then if there's other needs out there, you may need to partner with other organizations, other individuals that can provide that service that you aren't providing. And that's a big piece, because you don't want to stretch yourself so thin that you're not able to be effective into those things that you are really, your vision was. Stick with your vision, excel in your vision, and reach out and partner. And that's one area in the nonprofit world that we are all learning to do, where we're not going to, we don't need to be so wanting to work independently, but we have to learn to partner. And the big thing is, and the great thing is, the funders are looking for that. You'll see in proposals and grants and conversations, they'll say, well, who are you working with? And 9 times out of 10, if you're not working with anybody, they know the sustainability of your project or program is very slim. And so it's very important to build partnerships in that aspect and to stay committed to what you said you're going to do, but then to partner with those that are providing other services that you may not be. And that's, again, what you can stand for. And also looking at who will be affected by your work. And so the language in that you'll hear is, what is your target audience? Who are you serving? What is the expected outcome that you're wanting? What is the impact you're looking for? And so those are things that, all encompass your why. So I'm going to let you kind of look at that for a few minutes, and then we're going to go on to the next slide. But the thing at the bottom is, when you know our why, anything is possible. And that's something that I think my dad has just installed in me when I was a little girl, that I really feel like I could do anything. And so in creating this nonprofit, that's kind of been my mindset. I know I wanted this. This was the vision. I can't get it out of my mind. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. If that's me learning how to utilize social media, I'm going to learn social media. I'm going to find classes, hit to the library that has social media classes. I'm going to do my research, because I'm going to do anything possible in order for this vision to come forth. And that's what's key. You can go to the next slide, Jeremy. All right. Be ready to work and sacrifice. And so there is a difference between, and again, I'm using my experience, but, some people will look, oh, well, Kim loves the kids, and that's so cute. And so some people may look at it as a hobby, and maybe even going in, creating your nonprofit, you're thinking, oh, I want to create a nonprofit and do this and have fun. I'm going to get easy grants. I think that's kind of the mindset people have. Oh, you file your paperwork. I'm going to pay somebody to file my paperwork, and then I'm going to get grant money. Or I'm going to get people to write checks, and it's smooth sailing. No, ma'am. No, sir. I wish it was the case, but no. You are going to, let me back up. There's some people that have 2 different mindsets. I'll tell you, my mindset in going in with my organization was, I am going to establish a nonprofit organization that is not going to just stand as a mom and pop nonprofit organization, but this is going to be a corporation. So the first step, when you are developing your nonprofit organization, you have to incorporate it. And I think that's where people lose the mindset. This is a corporation. This is a business. Even though it's not a for-profit business, this is a business. If you were going to go through the steps of establishing a nonprofit, you are establishing a business. And so you have to have that mindset of a business. Otherwise, I encourage you just to do this as volunteer work. If you're not going to go in with the mindset of a sustainable business, just find an organization to do volunteer work, right? So stay with me if you are looking at this as a business, because that's how I'm going to approach everybody on here. So with us being on here, we're having that mindset of business, and we are going to put in work. You are going to invest your time. For years, my mindset was, okay, in the very beginning stages, I'm working full time because I have bills. I have a family. And this is going to be my side hustle while I'm building it. So my focus was always, I got to take care of home and my main job, and I'm going to build this on the side. So as you're doing that, you're going to have to invest time. So while you're putting in your 40 plus work in your main job, you've got to invest that other time in building this up if you are that serious. So that's signing up for classes, that's doing research on your own, that's learning how to do things on your own. Because even if you have the resources to hire somebody to do your social media, to do your website, you still need to have a little bit of knowledge of those things. And also being aware of the business requirements, having a timetable of a calendar of events, knowing what reports you have to report, knowing what you have to submit, knowing what records you have to keep. And so, again, this is a business. This is not a hobby. This is not, we're just doing this for fun. But if you're having that mindset of business, this is a brand and I'm branding myself, I encourage you to operate in excellence. And that's just, from day one, that was my mindset from my brand, from what I'm putting out there, from my logo. You want it to have that sharp business look and not just, oh, that's so cute. So I just encourage you in every step, especially in your building stages. Again, you are all in the thought process. So from day one, I want you to have that mindset of this is a business. This is just as good as a YMCA. This is just as good as a Big Brothers, Big Sisters. You have to have that mindset from day one. I'm gonna throw another quote at y'all, but begin with the end in mind. So having that, I may be small now, but I know where I'm going. And so you have to establish yourself from day one in regards to where you want to go. Another piece, and to be ready to work and sacrifice, is building and maintaining your board. And so you've got this vision, you've got this energy, you're started, you are ready. Be very strategic on who you bring on board. And so every nonprofit organization has to have a board of directors. What I see a lot of people do, what they'll do, just to get the paperwork done. And whenever I'm working with a client, I let them know I'm not about just getting stuff done, but I'm looking at quality, sustainability. Don't just try to get your best friend. You can add maybe like one family member on your board, but be strategic on who you bring to your table. Be strategic on who you bring. When they talk about who's on your boat, on your bus, be strategic on who you share your vision to. Be strategic on having someone with a marketing background, having someone with a legal background, having someone with a finance background, having someone with, depending on what your area is, mine with youth, having someone with a mental health therapist, adolescents background, having someone from the school system if you work with youth. So be very strategic in regards who you bring on your board of directors and who you bring in to share your vision with, because you want to, you don't want to just waste time talking and sharing with someone who's not able to support you in this vision. So be very strategic on who you're working with. Otherwise, you'll just be kind of treading water if you're not working with the right people on your team. Be ready to manage and manage your volunteers and staff, because again, like I said, it takes a team. It's very, very hard to do this by yourself. I've had times where I was the only one, and it's hard. And so just understanding that, even as I mentioned, having a board of directors, and being strategic on who you pick, you still have to manage them. You still have to keep them engaged. You still have to email them. You still have to share information with them. And so that takes time. Any of you all who supervise staff understand when you have volunteers, it's the same piece. You have to maintain that. You have to maintain staff. You have to maintain volunteers. And so that takes work and time. And so be ready to invest that time. And then, of course, then your program piece. That takes time and work. You can't just talk about it, but you have to be about it. So if I'm out here saying that, oh, I'm going to change the lives of youth, I can put it on paper, but I got to put the work in too. Because guess what? When you're out in the community, when you're ready to write that grant, when you're ready to sit across the table from a funder, when you're ready to create fundraising events, they're going to want a story. And if you aren't able to share an impact, the likelihood of them supporting you is very slim, because it just becomes an idea then. And so one thing I always encourage people is, as you are developing and as you're growing your nonprofit organization, don't wait to start. And so we got our 501c3 in 2014, but we began our work in 2010 because I wanted the numbers, I wanted the impact, I wanted to show the proof. And we could have done it sooner than that. It didn't really need to take 4 years, but I can be a perfectionist at times. I'll admit that. So I move a little slow, but I was definitely determined to be able to show my worth. I was able to show people, okay, we can write on paper. I can give you a logo, but guess what? I can change the lives of youth. We can do X, Y, and Z. And so there was a time period where we operated just volunteers doing the work, so we can have those stories of impact, so we can have those testimonials from students and parents, so that we could build the relationships in the community. So we had to put in the work from the ground up, and that's one thing. Going to the name of the organization, Firm Foundations, I'm a big believer of, I got to establish that foundation really, really good, because I plan on being here for some years. And so that's what I'm saying to you. You've got to put in that work in the beginning to establish that firm foundation, so that when things come against you, because like I said, not trying to scare you, I'm just keeping it real now. When things come against you, you're able to stand on that why that we talked about earlier. And so that's really important, to go in the mindset knowing that this is work. I'm going to have to make some sacrifices. I'm going to have to, if I like Starbucks, guess what? I may have to cut out a cup of coffee one day a week to pay for a website host. And so that's what I was doing. I was sacrificing things because I was like, you know what? This amount can pay for me to have a website. What do I want? I want that website because that's what people ask. Where's your website? Other things is, I might have to sacrifice because I want that email address that doesn't say @gmail.com. It says @firmfoundationsinc.org. So where can I sacrifice in my personal budget in the beginning, so I can build that brand, so I can build that presence, I can build that credibility, just to show people that I'm the real deal. And so I always like to tell people, how bad do you want it? Do you want to continue going out to eat every night? Or are you willing to make that sacrifice now in order to have that long-term impact? All right, Jeremy, you can go on to the next one. Know the industry. This is a big one. And of course, I shared with you my background. And so I'm a little lucky because my background is nonprofit management. I was in the world of nonprofit. So I was on the backside. I was doing grant writing for the nonprofits I worked for. I was doing program development. I was doing all of that. And so my background was nonprofit. What I do see a lot now, and I'm not saying you don't have to have the background that I had in nonprofit in order to start a nonprofit, but you do need to know the industry. So if you aren't currently working in nonprofit and you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to learn the industry. You all have that thought, you have that vision. So one thing I encourage you to do is to look up and find at least 3 other nonprofits that are doing what you're talking about doing, right? Learn what they're doing. Look at how they're doing. Even look at who's funding them. Look them up. And, even maybe go visit what they're doing. If it's a transitional housing, go visit, take a tour. You don't have to tell them that you're wanting to start yours, but, just go take a tour. Learn the industry, specifically learn who's doing what you're wanting to do. And then that goes back to when I talked about the gaps. And I guarantee you, if you're learning what these other organizations are doing, they're not doing exactly what you're talking about doing. I'm sure there's some differences. You need to find the gaps. You need to be able to articulate what the difference is. Again, I'll share with you that is a question that I see on a lot of grants. Who is doing similar work to what you're proposing to do? So again, they're wanting to know, do you know what's going on? And then the question is, how are you different? So again, knowing your why, knowing your vision, knowing what you're committed to do, and being able to articulate that. These are things that are going to come up all the time in regards to you really growing your nonprofit. So there's a lot of groups on Facebook. I'll even say there's a lot of nonprofit groups that you can join. There are consultants you can follow. Your education of learning the industry honestly should never stop. And this digital world of ours, there's so much information, right? So I kind of consider myself an information junkie, where I'm Googling, what's out there. I'm looking what groups are out there, and just sitting in and learning and absorbing that information. So if this is what you're going to do, then you need to teach that. You need to absorb that information. You need to have a hunger for this knowledge as well, so that you can apply it and understand the laws and regulations, looking at people who didn't do it well and people who are doing it well. And I say that, know the business or you will get robbed. There are a lot of nonprofit consultants out there. What I would encourage you to ask is to make sure, I would ask the background of that consultant. Do they have a background in nonprofit? And then, not to toot my own horn, but have they walked the walk of creating a nonprofit? Anybody can get a textbook or look online and shoot you to a website and read the steps of creating a nonprofit, but have they walked the walk? Do they really know what it takes and what it doesn't take? And so what happens is they can sell you that they can fill out a form. They can sell you that they can write a grant. But a lot of times what I've learned is they're writing that grant, they're copying that grant, just maybe changing the organization's name out and selling it to you and selling it to everybody else, that same grant. And so really, really know the business so that you won't be taken advantage of and you won't lose hundreds of, a lot of money in that aspect. So really understand for yourself. You don't have to become an expert in everything, but you need to be knowledgeable of business basics, from the reporting, from the accounting piece, from marketing, knowing what reduced marketing tools are out there. So you're not paying someone a whole bunch of money. One thing is where I see people charging like hundreds of dollars to create an EIN, where you can go online and create an EIN in the matter of 15 minutes and not have to pay somebody $300. And so just be mindful and become knowledgeable and do some of your own research before you reach out for that additional support. And I'm not saying that you won't need support and you won't need some guidance, but if you understand and you have that background knowledge, that'll help you make some better business decisions in regards to where you invest your money, especially on the startup side. All right, Jeremy, let's go to the next slide. Define your uniqueness. Again, this is so critical. The gaps that you are filling, you have to understand there are a lot of nonprofits out there. There are a lot of nonprofits in Charlotte, North Carolina alone. So you have to, just like this image says, you have to be that pink duck among all the yellow ones out there, because there's a lot of us, right? And that's the reality. And you have to be able to identify those gaps and what makes you different. You have to understand, what are you good at? Because I'm not trying to underestimate everybody here, but you can't be great at every single thing. So you really need to kind of narrow down, what are your strengths? And so one example I like to say is, one of my non-strengths, my weaknesses, is technology, right? So knowing that, just naturally, my organization, we don't do a lot of technology. I don't really create a lot of technology programs because that's not my strength. So the way that I counteract that is I partner with other organizations, or I seek volunteers that can bring that aspect to my organization, right? But if you are out here advertising that you're doing everything, then as a business model, we know that's not really sustainable. And so again, I'm going to go back to what I was saying before in grants, right? In grants, they're going to want to know, who are you partnered with? In grants, they're going to want to know who's on your board. And so remember when I was talking about being strategic on who you bring to your table, who you bring on your bus. And I saw someone mention in the comments, how do you select a board? You're very strategic in selecting your board, because you want to show, okay, I've thought this through. I know there's going to be needs that my organization has. And so how do I address those needs? Well, I use the leadership from my board. So either I have somebody on my board that has a marketing background that can design my logo, or they can connect me to somebody that can help me design my logo. So that's an expense that when seen, they know, okay, I don't have to pay that much for marketing materials. So if you have committees, that help build up your strength, but you have to look at what are your strengths. And if you have some challenges and some weakness, some weak areas, how are you addressing that? So definitely having a plan in mind in regards to your uniqueness. And then thinking of creative ways to brand yourself. And like I said, we see there are a lot of nonprofits out there. We have some that may be doing the exact same service. So I mentioned that I do after school programs and summer camp programs and mentoring programs. Well, I bet you all can probably name about 5 to 10 other places that you can get that service. And so I had to think of creative ways to brand ourselves. You'll have to think of creative ways to brand yourself. What is trending? What is going on in our communities? I remember one time I just really had to become, in my mind, I said, I've got to become a teen expert. I've got to know teens. If I'm out here saying that we are an organization that provides programs to teens, then I've got to be that teen expert, because that's what people are going to expect. I'm going to have to know to impact them, because that's what people are going to expect. And I've got to become that brand. I've got to have a service and programming where people are, when they bring their teens to me, they need to know at the end of the program, wow, I've gotten something from my teen that I have not gotten anywhere else. And so you have to go with that mindset. And so one of the programs that I have a lot of pride in it was our teen summer camp. Of course, now with COVID, we shifted and we got more creative with it. But I remember in the very beginning when we would advertise our teen summer camp, and even the teens, we had to market and brand ourselves with the teens. And so they would come to the orientation, the teens would have their heads hanging, and it was just like, me at a summer camp, I'm in high school. Why am I coming to the summer camp? And even from a funder standpoint, everybody was just like, a teen summer camp, that doesn't make any sense, because this was a summer camp where it was, a regular camp from 8 to 5:30. But during our summer camp, it was so exciting. We provided financial literacy classes. We had banks coming in. We went on field trips where they did project-based learning with financial literacy. We did college visits. We did career visits. We had guest speakers. It was jam-packed with opportunities, where at the end, those teens that were just like, I don't want to go to summer camp. Now they were excited about summer camp and telling other teens. And so that was our strength. And so I had to take that strength and really use that to build our brand. Like, we are the teen camp, we had to take pride in that, whether it's videos, footage, if it's definitely social media now is a big strategy. One of the newest marketing strategies, and I'll be honest, we haven't tapped all the way in yet. It's pretty, you have to get very creative, is TikTok. That's what's trending. So you have to know what is trending, and you incorporate that into your marketing strategy. And so if it's TikTok, you better learn the TikTok. If it's social media, you cannot hide it. You cannot shy away from that. So you have to incorporate what's trending. Where are people going for information? If it's Clubhouse, that's the trending thing now. You got to go to Clubhouse. And so you have to, again, that's why I said knowing the industry and knowing some of these things and what's going on, you have to pay attention. So people are talking about TikTok, people are talking about Clubhouse, people are on Instagram, people are looking at YouTube. So it's all those things, creating that YouTube channel, creating that TikTok, and getting somebody to TikTok, even if it's not you. So it may not be me TikToking, but it may be the teams that I serve TikToking, and I'm kind of putting that creative video together. And so you have to pay attention in regards to the marketing. Where is the information coming from? What are people talking about? Where are people going in regards to creative ways to brand yourself? Okay, Jeremy. Someone said yes, TikTok, yes. All right. Step 5. So I spend a lot of time on the real deal piece. Kind of really, I don't want to say the soft skills, but the stories, right? So, and I know just when I was creating and starting, and this was me having a background in nonprofit, and I still was seeking information. I would go to workshops and everything was about for-profit business. And I know good and well that I can't apply everything from a for-profit mindset to my nonprofit. Now, a lot of you can. So I do encourage you to still pay attention to those to those for-profit workshops and pieces, because I think that's where the world of nonprofit has kind of been dwindled down a little bit, because people think nonprofit, oh, you don't get paid, it's just hard work, it's just passion work, and they don't really see it as a business. And that's where I think it's time where we change the game in the world of nonprofit, right? We go in with that mindset, and I love that you all are ones on here. You are in that thought process, that thought stage where you can be one of those game changers, and you start off with that business mindset and not that this is a hobby mindset, right? Because there's going to be a shift where I mentioned before where, okay, I had my main job and my focus was, my main job, right? And Firm Foundations was my side gig. But there was a point where I had to make that shift, and I had to make Firm Foundations my main job and everything else a side gig. And I'm lucky to be able to be at that point now, after a lot of work. I mentioned that before. Took a lot of work, a lot of stress, but the reward is great when you're able to see your impact from a business that you built from the ground up. That a lot of people aren't able to share that story from these bigger organizations. But you'll get to that point. If you just hold on, you'll get to that point where you have that shift, if that's what you want to do. Some people, want it to just be kind of a part-time side gig, which is fine, because impact is impact. And so, but to get to that point where I was able to say, you know what, I'm about to take that leap, and I'm going to make this my main job. And even though I do still want multiple streams of income, my mindset now and where I am, as I'm even speaking to you all, my mindset now is, if it's going to do anything to take me away from doing Firm Foundations, or it's not going to allow me to do my organization to the best of my ability and to make the impact, then I'm willing to sacrifice. This goes back to the other slide. I'm willing to sacrifice. So this is an ongoing sacrificial job, right? Where I know there's been times, and I'll be very honest with you, when I talked about being frustrated and tired and getting weary, there's been times I've been there, and I've been in the game for a while. But there's been times that I've been like, let me go back and work for another nonprofit and just let this go. But I go back to my why. I go back to thinking of a family's life that I impacted. I go back to my why, and it brings me back in. And so knowing that you can make that shift, when you put in the work, you can make that shift, and you can still do other things on this. Now my other stuff is on the side. I do work do some other things. My consultant work even is on the side. If I'm doing a lot with firm foundations and I can't take on a client, I'll bless you and release you because I'm focusing on my firm foundations. And so that's kind of where I am in life right now, where I do other things, but firm foundations is my main thing. But that all goes back to your why. And so we're going to go. I do want to share a resource, which is really good because I want to give some time for questions and answers. I think I've answered some, but I want to open the floor if there's others. But I wanted to share a resource that kind of gives you more of the technical information, because I know on this workshop, I didn't really go into the technical piece, but I want to show you a free resource that's out there. And it's an organization called North Carolina Nonprofits, the Center of Nonprofits. And so, Jeremy, if you'll click on that link so I can walk them through some of this. Thank you. So there is a membership side. I've been a member before. I don't think it's quite necessary in the very beginning stages. Don't tell them I said that. I'm sorry. But I just say that because there's a lot of free resources on here. And so if you'll see at the top, and Jeremy, if you'll click on start a nonprofit organization. And Jeremy or Janet, if you can drop that link in the chat, can they see that? If somebody wants to save that link. But on this website, of course, there's the start a nonprofit. You click on that, and then you'll see you can click on here, and it's a nice little information packet that goes over all of the details in the steps from filing your bylaws and what does that look like, and from creating your, going to the North Carolina Secretary of State, doing your articles of incorporation, getting an EIN. So a lot of these things that we hear, and I think that's where people freak out and they're like, oh my gosh, starting a nonprofit is so hard. But I just encourage you to take it step by step. And so this is a good document that really takes things step by step. And so I just encourage you to kind of look through this. And then also there's samples. And so where it says creating bylaws, well, you can find sample bylaws and make it fit to your organization's name, or your organization's mission statement. And so again, this is a great free resource. You do have to be careful when you're out here looking at resources. You want it from a credible organization. So this is one that I definitely vouch for and definitely want to share that. And speaking of credible organizations, this is something that I just realized I wanted to kind of emphasize on too, especially as you are in the beginning stage, even as you were in the thought process. And I talked about partnerships. And so one of I would say the biggest challenge as a startup organization is proving yourself, right? So you personally know your reputation, your heart, you're in the right mind space to do this. But the reality is there's a lot of people that want to start a nonprofit. And the sad reality is there's some people that are wanting to start for the wrong reasons, because they think that getting grant money is easy, and they think that you can get a grant and just spend money on whatever you have. I mean, people have abused, just like with anything, people have abused nonprofit organizations for personal use. And so as a startup, you are constantly having to prove yourself. I don't know at what point you're going to have to stop proving yourself, but you're going to always have to prove yourself, right? And so as you were starting it, one of the best things I know that helped us was being strategic in our partnerships. And so in the very beginning, and still even now, we're very strategic in who we partner with. And so one of our first partners was Mecklenburg County Park and Rec. And so we would do our programming within the rec center, and we would partner with them. Not only did we house programs there, but we would do programs together. So that was a good partnership. We partnered with the library where they would include us in their outreach programs, and they would come in and do programs for our youth. We would partner with the who else? Children's Theater of Charlotte. So we were very strategic on people that we worked with, so that honestly, when we say, oh yeah, we partnered with Park and Rec, it kind of gave us some credibility, because they're not going to just let anybody come in there and do their programs. Children's Theater, they're not going to just go and do a program just for anybody. So you have to build relationships with people. You have to build relationships with organizations to show your credibility. So it's easier to build a relationship where it's a mutual relationship, where it's you are needing youth to come into your rec center. Okay, well, I can get youth. So how about we work together on this? I can promise you youth, you can give me a space pro bono. And so that's where the partnerships, and I say mutual. So don't always go with your hands out, so to speak, wanting to say, gimme, gimme, gimme. But think in the mindset, how can I help benefit you? If you need numbers, and I know that I have a knack for getting youth or getting families together, how can we benefit and help each other? And so partnerships is another big step into that. Again, I mentioned you can't do it alone. People aren't wanting to see that you're working alone. Funders aren't wanting to see that you work alone. When they see that you can work with people, they know it's more sustainable. So a real big focus on partnerships is key, in addition to knowing your why. All right. Jeremy, next slide, what you think? All right, I said this earlier. Begin with the end in mind. You all said that you were ones, were in the thought mindset. What I really hope you do, because when you know your why is big enough, you will find your how. And as you find your how, I really, really encourage you all to change the game of nonprofit. Like I said, have this mindset of excellence. Have this mindset of, I'm going to put in work. I want to be a business, not a hobby. There may be other workshops for hobby. My message is not for hobby lovers, right? My message is for business game changers. So as we are creating this new world of nonprofits, I just want to see so many more nonprofits have this mindset of business, have this mindset of, of excellence, have this mindset of a corporation, not just as a hobby. And I love to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm going somewhere. I am building a brand. I'm building a legacy. I want this seriously. And so as you're in your initial steps, please be mindful of how are you laying that foundation of your business. Do your research, partner, and hold on to your why, because there are going to be times that, like I said, you're going to be challenged, but hold on to your why, because you know that things are going to happen, but as long as you know your why, trust and believe you can overcome those. All right, you can go to the next slide, Jeremy. All right, so I know that they are, I think I answered some questions. I saw someone say that I answered it. That makes me feel good. But do we have any other questions? Anything that you want to ask me? Like I said, I've been through a lot in this building process. I am here to help. So, I am as transparent as can be. If I know that it's going to help you fulfill your vision. So if you have questions, what are good marketing strategies? I know someone asked. Did you feel that I answered that question? I know I talked about social media, really paying attention to what's trending. So I mentioned the TikTok and the Clubhouse. Another good marketing strategy are testimonials. And so if you are in the beginning stages, and we know everybody is, and so one of the strategies I would use for marketing is to build the why. Like, what is the why of the organization? And so what that could look like is going out and finding So let me use my example. So I know that I support teens, right? So if I'm in the very beginning stages, I don't have a teen program, I'm not serving any teens right now. What I would go to do is go to parents of teens and get some questions answered from them. So maybe it's some surveying, where then I could put out there in my marketing materials via social media that, hey, parents said they need support for their teens. Like, I'm not making this up. These are coming from parents. And even if you can get parents on video to say that, to prove the need. And so what you'll need in a lot of the proposals and grants that you're going to need to write are needs assessments. And so you can use that as marketing tools. If it's, like I said, going to the source and saying, hey, can I put this on video? Can I put this information out there that this is a need? Then use that as your marketing strategy. So you need to spend a lot on the content of your marketing strategy. So I can say, yes, TikTok, social media, YouTube, but looking at the content of your marketing is very key as well. So you want a profound message. You want to prove the need in your marketing strategy. If you're in the beginning stages and you may not have the programming, you want to use marketing materials that's proving the need. Once you do your programs, then your marketing material can be, oh, we served X number of kids and this is their impact story. All right, let me read this. If you have a name and mission in mind, but you want to build a nonprofit business that's the umbrella for more, that's the umbrella for more organizations. Do you approach it as separately managed business with their own teams and a board overseeing it? Let me read that one more time. So it depends. And that's where you kind of, that disappeared. I'd have to really look at what the type of business you are talking about being the umbrella. So that's a very specific question. So if it's all under the same industry, so if you can, Jim, you can go to the next slide while I'm answering questions because my email address is on there, I believe. Okay, so if you want to pose that question to my email address, I would like to get a little bit more details about that in regards to umbrella organizations and so forth. Okay, is that fine? Good question. What are our next level goals for firm foundations? All right, so our next level goals is our growth. And so the big goal is to have a teen center. So we have a facility now where we operate our programs. It's pretty much made of meeting rooms, but our big goal is to have a state-of-the-art teen center that has the computer labs, the art studios, things of that nature on a larger scale. And so think of one of these local rec centers, but it being dedicated toward teens. And so an opportunity to keep them off the street, to give them those skills that they need, to provide trades, programming, to really, really show our teens that they matter. So one of our programs is called I Matter. And one of our messages is Teens Matter, because sometimes that age group kind of gets lost when it comes into positive communication. So that's our next one. Did you have to include HIPAA guidelines in our nonprofit profile? No, we did not. No, we did not. Good questions. Oh, go ahead, Jenna.
Kim, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you were talking about building your teen programs and having, a place for teens to go, could you address, I immediately thought of, the big places of Charlotte, which is basically the Charlotte YMCA. Okay, so you're directly competing with them. And that is one of their main missions. I mean, I go there a lot. I know a lot of people. So, and the YW is catching up, but the biggie here in Charlotte is the YMCA. Could you handle or tell us, managing that fear at times and sticking with it because you're in a city that has huge nonprofits?
Yes. So I think one of the benefits, and try not to, play on our names. One of my benefits I spoke of, like I've worked for both of them. The YM, YW, I've worked for both. So I've been on the back end. And I've been, now I'm on the other side where I see the outside, what everybody else sees. I have no fear in regards to other organizations that may be providing similar services. I'm always able to articulate what we do different, what we do better. And that's what you have to, I spoke about the why, your why, WY, WHY. You have to be strong in that, because that could overshadow some people. Well, let me just throw in the towel because they're doing it. They're on the news again for getting $1 million grants and stuff. And so that could make someone want to throw in the towel. But again, able to distinguish what you do, what your strengths are, what you do different, what you may do better. You have to stand on that to eliminate that fear. And so I can say I definitely have no fear. I will sit at the table of any organization and push forth firm foundations. And we all have to be that way while still respecting each other. I respect a lot of organizations in Charlotte that may be doing similar things to me, but it won't overshadow my dreams and my goals for my organization. And I encourage all of you to have that same mindset. Any tips on software to keep track of measurable results? And so, right as a startup, to be honest with you, there's a lot of forms, honestly, that you can create. Google Excel, Google Sheets is a great one, but because what you're going to need to do is collect attendance. If you're providing programs, that data, the names, a lot of the things, whatever impact you're trying to show. In the beginning, I would not invest finances in that. I would create that and invest the money in other like marketing material that's going to be on the outside. So like the website and emails and all that kind of stuff. The fear dissipates when vision impact. Okay, I like that, Ms. White. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. As a startup that is ready to kickstart fundraising, yet not at the space to file officially as a nonprofit business, can we? And what are logistical steps that need to be taken? So if you are ready to kickstart fundraising, my big question would be, why do you feel like you are not in a space to file officially? And so I know this is a platform where we can't really verbally talk back and forth, but again, please email me. But what I would say is you can, but you have to be limited under a certain dollar amount. Even when you do have your paperwork done, there is something called the charitable solicitation form. So again, I'm going to say that again, charitable solicitation license. That's what it is. You need that to fundraise. So definitely look into that. That is the first step in regards to fundraising. But I would also encourage you all, because I know starting up, when I talked about, okay, we started doing programming in 2010, but didn't get our 501c3 till 2014. And I had that mindset, like we weren't ready. I mentioned before, I can be a perfectionist and move slow. And that was the process. Then I was like, oh my gosh, it costs like $850. Like it was expensive. That form is tedious. And it intimidated me. Right. But then in 2014, I will never forget it. In June of 2014, they started the new process of the easy form. And when the easy form came out and it was easier, it was online, I just jumped on it and went. And so we did the easy online 501c3 application and just did it. So don't talk yourself out of not doing the paperwork, right? Go to irs.gov, look up nonprofit organizations and the paperwork and look up the easy form. And I promise you, it's not that bad. You are a startup, right? So unless you are starting with, $60,000 in the bank, which maybe y'all are, I was not. And I knew within the first year, realistically, I wasn't going to have that much money in the bank. And so we started off under that lower threshold, knowing that we didn't have that $50,000 in the bank. And so we did the easy application and got our 501c3. I did it online, got it back in like 3 weeks. And it was like half the cost. So don't talk yourself out of that, feeling that you're not ready. If you are ready to fundraise on your vision and raise money, then I think you're probably ready to file your paperwork. All right. Good questions. Anybody else? Janet, can you think of anything that I may not have covered?
I have another question also.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to building relationships and mentorships, because you are a nonprofit, do you also have, like, say, on your board or mentors who are in the commercial side, in terms of, it seems to me you would have to have a blend of both. So, and then obviously, how do you, I know through networking, but find them and then also sustain them? That's another question.
You're talking about your board of directors, right?
Yes.
Okay. So from my experience and even looking at other boards, your nonprofit organization's probably going to comprise of just corporate, mainly corporate, right? Because right now, this space, I wouldn't join on too many nonprofit boards because my board members are expected. There's a thing called you get, give, or get off. You get resources for the organization. So that's either they're out there fundraising, getting support, they give. So that means they're financially giving out their own pocket, or hate to say it, you get off the board. So if these other individuals are working for nonprofits, they're probably raising money for their nonprofit. So you see what I'm saying? So you're going to be asking them to raise money for your nonprofit while they're raising money for their nonprofit. So there's something that we call a conflict of interest in your bylaws. So that tends to cause conflicts of interest if you have a lot of people on your board that are, they're trying to raise money for their organization, but you're asking them to raise money for you. And so on most boards, you're going to see the corporate individuals. So if it's, and these are people, a lot of corporations like to put people on their board, to put their staff on people's board. So you'll see, if you look up, and this is a good thing to do too. So you can go on some of these big time nonprofits and look and see who's on their board, right? You'll see somebody that works for Duke Energy and, Time Warner Cable, Wells Fargo. You'll see these names, and they're name droppers, they're corporations. These are big time organizations. And so it's really important too. I hate to say it's part of the game, but I've noticed on grants now the funders are asking, well, who's on your board? It's like, well, who's on your board? Who's on your board? So you want, some corporations, you want some people that have that backing behind their name too. And a good benefit for that is, like, I have somebody from Microsoft on our board, and Microsoft has this program. So if y'all don't know anybody from Microsoft, get them on your board, because anytime he volunteers, Microsoft cuts check, right? So there's a lot of companies that do that. They'll invest and pay for volunteer hours that their employees are doing. And so that's something to look at. But I tell y'all, Microsoft does it. So you might want to look into somebody that works for Microsoft. And also with his background for Microsoft, it also helps us with the technology needs. Like I mentioned, that's something that is not my background. So having someone on my board that can give me advice and point me in the right direction and, give us some support in that area is fine, is much needed. So again, being strategic in your board of directors is a big step. And you want somebody to say, hey, Kim, we need to do X, Y, and Z, or hey, Kim, have you thought about doing things this way? Because sometimes as founders of your organization, you can kind of get tunnel vision. And you don't want that. Like we have this vision, these organizations are our babies, but you still need to be open to suggestions. You still need those fresh sets of eyes on your vision to help guide you and to give you some unbiased support. And so that's why I also mentioned not having just all your family on there, which is going to be a conflict of interest, so that when you try to get that paperwork approved, it's not going to fly because they know that that's not sustainable. So you want some unbiased voices that'll give you that feedback. And that's in any business area. You should want that.
So yes, even though you're in the nonprofit industry, it is essential to partnership with the for-profit.
Definitely.
Business leaders, yeah. And those companies, like you said, Kim, they have outreach goals now to meet also. So it's kind of a win-win.
It's a win-win. They have outreach goals for their staff to be, and volunteer. And it's connected to funding too. On a grant, they'll say, are any of our employees on your board, or any of our employees volunteer with you? So be strategic in that too. So some of it you'll learn, you got to learn to play the game, in a sense, just to be honest with you, and being strategic in a lot of the way you set up. If I experienced a scenario of any pushback from someone with the big corporations, that would tell you. I have not had any pushback. Again, just being strategic and who I ask on my board. I don't, I'm trying to think. I don't foresee myself asking anyone who is from a nonprofit organization to be on my board. I would, in a sense, just partner with someone from another nonprofit. And so again, especially if they are providing a service that I don't provide, then I would partner with them, but I wouldn't ask them to join my board because I already know it's a conflict of interest. So again, before you even ask somebody, think, okay, are there any conflicts with this? With a for-profit corporation, I think the only conflict would be if it's a family member, or if it's a company that you plan on paying to provide a service for. So like I know an individual that provides a tutoring service. I wouldn't add him to be on my board because I know I want to contract him to do tutoring for my teams. And so I just wouldn't ask him to be on my board. I would definitely now, a nonprofit organization that's a foundation, I would definitely get somebody from foundations to get on the board. Anybody who gives out money, you want them on your board because guess what? They're going to bat for you. If they decide to join your board, then they're going to go to bat for you. And so I definitely, if you have a relationship or connection to invite somebody from a foundation to be on your board, then yes, I would invite them. They would know if they were not allowed to be on your board. So from their end as an employee, then they would know if it's a conflict of interest. So now if that individual says, hey, I can join your board, but this means you can't apply for any money, I wouldn't ask them to be on my board. So I would just have a close relationship with them, to have that connection. But you don't want to, take your name out of the picture in regards to being able to ask for money. So definitely have that person look at their conflict of interest and ask them up front, if you join my board, would that disqualify us from asking for money? Because you don't want to be disqualified. Good question, though. I really hope that, as a result of this meeting tonight, that you feel empowered. I, of course, don't want to scare anybody off from starting a nonprofit. I just want you to just go in a mindset of business, and that you are able to, and you are capable of taking your passion all the way toward the action state of creating a sustainable business. And so that's really, my heart's desire from tonight's conversation, that you all feel empowered. And like I mentioned, now is a great time. Look at this crisis as opportunity, and not as, woe is me, but be a solution to our community. We need so many things out there now. And I'm sure there's a lot of you on the call tonight that have these thoughts. So I encourage you to keep attending the series, learn from every speaker that's going to be joining you all, and apply the information. Don't just sit on it. Like I said, I move slow, because sometimes I can be a perfectionist. No, if it's not just right, I don't want to launch it, and I don't want to put it out there because it's not just right. While you're sitting on your vision, whatever area of impact that your vision can create, the impact's not being done. So just think about that, and move on your vision in some way, some fashion or form. Don't wait till everything's perfect. Start where you are. Yeah.
I just also want to remind the viewers that the library also does offer some learning opportunities with the nonprofit services. You can just check charlottemecklenburglibrary.org and check our calendar, because, we've got, next week we have that coming up. Along with this series, we do offer quite a few workshops, and just some courses that can help you all kind of get up and going. So great. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. No, you're welcome.
A pleasure. I'm sure everyone, benefited from this, and Kim will also be our week 6 series speaker. So thanks everyone for coming, and have a good rest of the week, and good luck on the nonprofits. Thanks so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.